Welcome back to the deep dive. If you've
Good.
ever run a project, managed a team, or maybe just tried to get in better shape, you've definitely heard the acronym SMART.
Oh, yeah. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. Pretty much the go-to framework, isn't it?
It really is. And our sources today, well, they don't just define it again. They dig into where high performers really apply it, and maybe more importantly, where a lot of us kind of mess up the implementation. So our mission for you, the listener, is to pull out those specific nuggets, the things that take goal setting from, that vague idea scribbled down somewhere.
Yeah, like on a napkin.
Exactly. Into
Yeah.
something clear, trackable, and actually achievable.
That's spot on. And this deep dive is probably less about just the definitions, you likely know those already, and more about the disciplined application. What's really interesting in the sources is how the core value, the real power of SMART, whether it's a huge corporate project or just a personal goal, is actually discipline. It just forces you to get clear and be accountable.
Right.
By making your goals really well defined, making sure you have the resources, making them attainable right from the start, well, you just massively increase your chances of actually getting it done. It's the difference between saying, I want a new job and having a proper roadmap to getting that offer letter.
Okay, so let's unpack the framework then. But yeah, let's go beyond just the basic definitions, starting with specific. My classic vague goal used to always be, I want to succeed. How do we inject that, professional level specificity?
Just specificity is that professional clarity. It gives you direction, and crucially, it stops that drift that happens in so many projects. The sources often bring up the classic 5 W's check. Who, what, when, where, why, but not just for the task, for defining the scope.
Ah, the scope.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Think about a difference. Saying increase app users versus the much better example from the material. I want to grow the number of monthly users of TechFirm's mobile app by 20% within the next 6 months.
Okay, that's a massive difference. It tells you exactly where you're aiming.
And you can even get more granular, right? The really specific goal often includes the how, like increasing users by 1,000 trip card, by optimizing the App Store listing and creating targeted social media campaigns for, say, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Gotcha.
That level of detail means every bit of effort is focused. No wasted time.
That focus leads perfectly into M for measurable. Because if you can't track it, you can't manage it. That's the old saying, right? But isn't measuring sometimes tricky? You can measure vanity metrics all day, thousands of social media likes, but they might not actually help the real goal. How do we find the right thing to measure?
That's where the rigor comes in, definitely. Being measurable is key, but the metric has to tie back to the impact you want, not just the activity itself.
Right, the outcome.
Exactly. We need clear, quantifiable metrics, not just tracking what you do, but tracking the results. So personally, maybe it's something super concrete like losing 1 pound of body fat each week. Professionally, you need to look at hard results, things like customer retention rates, or maybe the number of qualified sales leads generated.
Okay. And here's a key tip from the sources for those bigger long-term goals. Set milestones. Milestones tied to specific smaller tasks. That way, even if the finish line is far off, you're getting constant, measurable feedback along the way.
That makes sense. It keeps you motivated. Now, let's get to maybe the trickiest one. A for achievable. This feels like walking a tightrope sometimes.
Yeah, it can be.
It needs to be challenging, push you a bit, but still be realistic. I know some high performers kind of struggle with this A. They want to set these huge, almost impossible goals. What's the danger there?
Well, the big danger is the classic motivation killer. Disappointment. Which, leads straight to giving up on the goal altogether.
Yeah.
Our sources suggest thinking about achievable not just as easy, but more like resourced and planned. That's the real insight here, I think.
Resourced and planned. I like that. Yeah. Your goals have to consider what you actually have available as the people, the money, the time. Aiming for, say, a 10% sales increase might be ambitious but realistic if you've got the team and the stock. But aiming for 50% in 1 month, maybe that's just physically impossible with your current setup.
Yeah.
So it becomes a bad, smart goal. You get a couple weeks in, realize it's impossible.
And suddenly you're ordering pizza and calling the whole thing off. Yeah, I can picture that.
We've all been there. So if a goal feels too big, the trick is always break it down. Make sure those smaller pieces are achievable. That keeps the momentum alive.
Right. Which leads us nicely into R for relevant. Why does the context matter so much, connecting what you're doing day to day to the bigger picture?
Well, think about it. If your goal is super specific, measurable, achievable, but it doesn't actually align with where you or the company needs to go.
Then you're just optimizing the wrong thing, wasting effort, basically.
Precisely. Relevance is what ensures your efforts have impact and are pointed in the right direction. The goal has to line up with those broader objectives, whether they're the company's strategy or your own long-term personal plans.
Can you give an example?
Sure. If a company is trying to improve profitability, a relevant goal might be reducing customer churn by 10% in 6 months. Why? Because keeping existing customers usually costs less than finding new ones. So it directly supports the bigger objective.
Okay, that makes sense.
That alignment is just critical. It justifies the work. It helps you focus your energy on what really matters and stops that feeling of just being busy for the sake of being busy.
Yeah, avoiding the busy work trap. Okay, and finally, wrapping up the acronym. T, time-bound. I have to admit, my first ever attempt at a SMART goal, I think I made it time-bound to sometime next quarter.
Oh dear. Not quite specific enough.
Not quite. Clearly failed on a T. What is it about putting that hard deadline on it that really changes things?
It creates that necessary urgency, doesn't it? And it helps maintain momentum. Time-bound means having a specific start date and a specific finish date. Like the example earlier, grow users by 1,000 within Q1 of 2022. It's unambiguous.
Right.
And a really key part of setting that timeline is checking if it's realistic, and C, that loops right back to achievable. Those two, A and T, they're really tightly linked.
That's a good point.
And for those longer projects, the ones stretching over months or even years, the sources really hammer this home. Define halfway points, milestones, check-ins, something to keep progress visible and prevent that mid-project slump or burnout.
Okay, that covers the 5 letters. Let's shift gears a bit to the art and science of actually writing these things down. That level of detail you mentioned, needing to spell out the why and the how, it suggests this isn't something you just dash off on a sticky note in 2 minutes.
Yeah. No, definitely not. It really does require some careful thought, planning, maybe even some brainstorming. You often have to kind of refine your initial ideas, maybe tweak them a bit until they properly tick all 5 boxes, S, M, A, R, and T. It's more of an iterative process.
Right, not a one-shot deal. And the research seems to back up the discipline of actually writing it down, doesn't it? Documented goals, having those action steps outlined, it correlates with a much higher success rate.
Absolutely. It seems simple, but that act of documenting is powerful. It creates a sort of contract with yourself or with your team. It's the accountability piece right there on paper or, on screen. We need to keep that discipline even when things get busy.
So when you manage to braid all 5 elements together successfully, what does a good practical statement look like?
Okay, here's a solid example we pulled. Achieve a 15% increase in customer satisfaction by the end of Q2 through improved training programs and feedback mechanisms.
Let's break that down.
Okay. You see the specificity. It's not just improved satisfaction. It's through improved training and feedback. There's the metric, 15% increase. Achievable. Let's assume 15% is a realistic jump for this context. Relevant. Yes, it clearly aligns with keeping customers happy, probably tied to retention. And time-bound by the end of Q2.
Perfect. That's a really useful objective, crystal clear.
That clarity is exactly what lets teams, or even just individuals, move forward without confusion or wasted effort.
Yeah, and let's look at some of those real-world applications from the sources because they really show how versatile this framework is. It's not just for big business strategy, it works for individual stuff too.
Totally. Professionally, you see SMART goals turning fuzzy concepts like, say, organizational health into something concrete. For instance, reducing employee turnover rates by at least 10% in the next quarter. That's a clear, measurable target, and it's directly tied to cost savings and keeping good people.
Right. Or thinking about individual performance, maybe for a manager. Increasing employee satisfaction by 10% within 6 months through improved communication and professional development opportunities. It takes that vague idea of being a good manager and makes it quantifiable.
Exactly. And it works just as well for personal growth.
Yeah.
The example we found was reading 1 business book per month for a year to broaden business knowledge.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Specific, 1 book. Measurable, 1 per month, 12 total. Achievable for most people. Highly relevant if you want career growth. And time-bound, over a year. It gives you a really clear path for learning.
Okay, so the framework itself is solid. The application seems clear. So why do people still find it hard sometimes? Let's talk about avoiding the common pitfalls. If it's so clear, where do people usually get tripped up?
Well, looking at the sources, we saw 3 main recurring mistakes. The first one is something we touched on. Setting goals that just aren't achievable. Either the time frame is too short or you just don't have the resources.
Yeah, setting yourself up to fail.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that guarantees disappointment. You really have to check your goals against your current reality, your workload, your budget, your team's capacity before you commit.
Makes sense. What's the second one?
The second mistake is kind of the opposite problem.
Yeah.
Underestimating how long things will take, or maybe just not being ambitious enough with the timeline. This can lead to stagnation, things drag on, energy dips.
Right, losing momentum.
Yeah. And that's where breaking goals down into smaller chunks with, realistic but maybe slightly aggressive timelines can really help keep the pace up.
Okay. And the third mistake, you mentioned this one feels particularly important for our listeners.
Yes, this one's more about mindset, I think. It's failing to properly process setbacks or failures along the way.
The all or nothing thinking.
Pretty much. People hit a snag, miss a target, and they treat it like the whole mission is a write-off. Game over. Instead, the sources really emphasize that setbacks aren't endings. They're actually super valuable learning opportunities.
How so?
Well, if you miss a target, it gives you data, right? It gives you insight into your planning. Maybe the goal wasn't truly achievable after all, or perhaps the timeline wasn't realistic. Maybe you needed different resources.
So view it as information, not failure.
Exactly. Embrace those setbacks. Analyze them. They help you refine your approach for the next time. Treat them like data points, not disasters.
That's a much healthier way to look at it. Okay, great shift in perspective. So finally, let's talk practical execution. We've set the goals, we understand the framework, we know how to handle bumps in the road. What about actually tracking all this? What tools can help?
Thankfully, there are tons of tools out there now that are pretty well suited for smart goal tracking. The sources mention tools like Trello, for example.
Oh yeah, Kanban boards.
Right. It's really effective because that visual style almost forces you to break the goal down, that's the specific and achievable part, into manageable tasks. And then you can easily see and track the progress, the measurable part.
Okay, what else?
Then you've got more, let's say, structured tools. Smartsheet came up. It's more like a spreadsheet on steroids, with columns specifically designed for objectives, metrics, timelines. Really good for team collaboration and reporting progress upwards.
And I saw the sources also listed quite a few of those more powerful, customizable platforms like ClickUp, Airtable, Notion, Monday.com.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are great options if you need something really robust, maybe with automation features, or if you want to tailor the tracking system exactly to your workflow. Lots of flexibility there.
But it's not just about fancy software, is it?
Not at all. And this is important. We can't forget the simple stuff. Google Sheets got a huge mention. It's familiar, easy to use, low barrier to entry. You can easily set up a simple template to track your objectives, your progress. Especially good for personal SMART goals.
So the tool isn't the magic bullet.
No, the magic is in the structure and the commitment to track, regardless of the tool you pick. You just need a system.
Right. So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, the main takeaway, the real benefit for you, the listener, in adopting and really sticking to the SMART framework, it's structure, isn't it?
It really is.
SMART goals give you that structure. They enhance your focus, they can boost your motivation, and ultimately they help transform those, vague wishes into actual, actionable, trackable realities.
And connecting that to the bigger picture, if you consistently implement SMART goals, really do it properly, it almost inevitably leads to better performance, better results, and just better alignment with whatever your long-term objectives are. It brings a real clarity of purpose, which frankly removes a lot of the anxiety that comes from just having ambition but no clear map of how to get there.
That clarity is absolutely priceless. Okay, so here's a final thought for you to take away and maybe chew on. We talked quite a bit about learning from setbacks, not seeing them as failures. So I challenge you. Think about your last goal that maybe didn't quite hit the mark, your last failed goal. Try not to view it as, a personal failing or a practical disaster. See it instead as a carefully measured data point. Valuable intel, go back to that beta point. Analyze it through the SMART lens. What crucial element was maybe a bit off? Was it not specific enough? Was the measurement wrong? Was it truly achievable? Was it relevant? Did the time-bound aspect trip you up?
Find that gap.
Exactly. Find that S, M, A, R, or T gap, understand it, and then use that insight to start planning your next attempt, making it stronger from the start.